Hey everyone, welcome back to ASM Track Tips. My name is Tomo Gorman from Tomo Coaching, and in this video we're talking about NOLA Motorsports Park. It's down in Avondale, Louisiana. It's just outside of New Orleans and about 16 corners, 2 3/4 miles long. And it is an interesting personality that this track has. It's a lot of fun to go to if you can, but not a huge motorsports culture down in Louisiana, so I feel like it's a little bit of a sleeper. Let's jump in for some tips. So here we have our overhead track map of NOLA Motorsports Park. As you can see, it's actually a very long and narrow footprint, and the overall note for this track is, while it is flat as far as elevation change goes, it's actually a super bumpy track. There's a lot of texture to the surface, which I think actually adds a lot more character than it gets credit for, and I think it's also much more of a driver's track in certain sections for sure than it also gets credit for. So it's a lot of fun. Jump in down the front straightaway here, super long straightaway. We're going to be on the left side of the track. The pit out is only about halfway down, and then you have all this extra distance to cover before getting to the braking zone, where we have typically a 4-3-2-1 brake markers down on our left. Now, as soon as we get to the brake markers here, right around the 4 or the 5, whichever one they have out, is super bumpy, really bumpy right as where you get to the brakes. The track has shifted quite a bit, but then it smooths back out a bit towards the turn-in. So the first couple times you bomb down in here at top speed, it's going to feel super uncomfortable. When you go to the brakes, it's going to feel really dramatic, but actually it should stabilize out by the time you get down towards turn-in. So when you hit the brakes here, trust that the car should come back to you. It's going to feel a little chaotic back here, but you have all this time to let the car settle back down. So we'll pick our threshold braking point out for turn 1 as we come down the left side of the track. And the key for turn 1 is actually keeping your speed up. You're really attacking the entry and mid-corner through turn 1, because turn 2 is so mild that you can end up on the far left side for turn 1. You actually want to end up on the far left side on track out and just power through turn 2. So there's no need to set up, brake super hard, late apex, anything like that here at turn 1. Turning point, good reference to start with, is right around the access road that's on your left, kind of rejoins right here. Just going to quickly turn the car down to the apex. The apex curb, you can just kind of central apex that, and the curb is pretty mild as well, so if you kiss that inside curb, it's not a big deal, but we want to keep our eyes up looking to the exit curbing way out here. It's very wide, but you don't want to get more than about a tire width on it on the left side of the car. It's really bumpy out there, so you're just going to track out to that outside curbing on the left, and then use this short little straightaway to bring the car back to the right, maybe a car width or so, to start to straighten out turn 2 just a little bit. But these corners will completely link together, and turn 1, again, very fast, and just roll your speed through it. Now as we work our way into turn 2, you should be able to set up just a little bit, maybe towards a car width off of the grass on your left, and just about every car should be able to go about flat through here. If you start to get above maybe 400 or 500 horsepower, you might need to breathe the throttle just a little bit through the middle of turn 2, but it is an acceleration zone essentially flat out all the way towards turn 3. That will track you out naturally to the right side of the track here. Now as we approach turn 3 from the right side, we have another access road we can use to help. There's a short course that cuts through right here, and that short course part is a good braking point for turn 3. Most cars should be able to brake right about where that access road ends, that second portion of it, where the grass rejoins the track here, but if you need to move it back just a little bit, that's okay as well. Now turn 3 and turn 4 are the two slowest corners on the track, and they're very tedious because there's absolutely no elevation here to help you. It's not really even that bumpy. They're just flat, plain, kind of skid pad style corners. But both of them are increasing radius, so that helps us out just a little bit. Starting with turn 3, we're going to get our braking done. It's a good threshold brake, and we can start to cheat our turn in just a teeny bit towards the inside curb here. But the key is we don't want to let the car track out too wide coming off of the corner. If you can see here, if you were to apex early or central and get on power, you're going to end up way out here in no man's land using a bunch of distance between turns 3 and 4. We want to avoid that for sure. So you should be able to get down to about a central apex right here. Just give the car a moment to keep to that inside and then accelerate up the left side of the track. That should minimize the distance between these two corners and give you a little bit more control, a little bit more time to set up for turn 4. Now in turn 3, I have seen some very high horsepower cars make running wide work. And you actually end up kind of mid-track for turn 4. If you're in a car that, like I said, 500, 600, 700 horsepower, if it doesn't do the cornering nearly as well as it does the acceleration, you can get on throttle and use a little bit more distance coming off of turn 3, but don't overwork the car to get all the way back to the left for turn 4. If you're going to use extra distance coming out of turn 3, just stay there and kind of cut the distance on the way into 4, because your power will make up for it. If you don't have that power, just cut the distance no more than maybe a car width off the left side of the track here. Now as we approach turn 4, generally, as I said, you'll want to be as far left as you possibly can be. 98% of cars are going to be right up against the left side grass here. And we have a curb on our way into the corner that'll help us get our braking and turn in timed correctly. Most cars will brake just before that curb that comes up on your left, and you're going to want to start guiding the car down into the corner right when that curb picks up. And this is a very gradual turn in down to again, a very central apex, and then we can track out with this increasing radius. The key here is not to exaggerate the turn in too late, or again, let the car cheat in. We want to kind of get that sweet spot of distance and speed on the way in. Lastly, we have a lot of runoff room way out here early on, as a road actually cuts straight down this entire straightaway. If you start to track out over the white line into this extra pavement, you're definitely using too much distance and not doing enough forward acceleration towards turn 5. So we want to pick up the throttle to use most of our energy to go forward towards turn 5, rather than extending the corner way off around the outside perimeter of turn 4. So now that we've exited turn 4, we should be all the way on the left side of the track, and we're entering the bumpiest section of NOLA. We have 3 right-handers down at the bottom end of the track that are super, super bumpy, and that's what gives this section its personality. So as we approach turn 5, the first of the 3, we're approaching yet another curb that's going to be on our left that helps us time our braking and turn in. Should be able to brake pretty towards that curb, basically right at it, and then turn in just past it. And you can see turn 5 is very shallow. It's really only about 40, 45 degrees. You can carry a lot of speed through here, but there are quite a bit of bumps right at the apex and also right about where you're going to pick up the brakes. So be aware of those curbs, but they'll start to feel pretty natural and part of the rhythm of this section after maybe a couple half dozen laps. As you approach turn 5, it's going to be a very firm but brief braking zone, then immediately back off the brakes and kind of balancing the car with maintenance throttle to carry that balance through this corner. Because it is so bumpy, we want to have the front and rear balanced with that maintenance throttle. And then as the car tracks out, we can pick up the power and accelerate towards turn 6. Very similar to the exit of turn 1 where we had that huge curbing, we have another big patch of curbing here on the exit of 5. And again, for the most part, you really only want to get the left side tires out onto it. If you get all 4 out onto it, it's a very violent ride. So it may be a little quicker, but you're probably losing forward acceleration as well because your car's in the air half the time. So just left sides out to this curb and then keep it right back on the track. So we're on the left side of the track coming off of turn 5, setting up for turn 6, which for me is the hardest corner on the track. The track map doesn't show it to scale, but we actually have a huge amount of runoff all the way out here, and this corner is the widest point on the track. So you have this huge area to work with, and it's really just a late apex right here at a curb at the exit of the corner. The trick is getting your turn in and your line through here timed correctly to find the sweet spot of speed and distance. You don't want to turn in too late and use too much distance, and you certainly don't want to turn in too early where you'll run out of track. So the tough part with turn 6 is slowing your turn in down and timing your turn in a way that just leads you naturally to this late apex at the curb here. What I find is as this access road comes back onto the track from turn 5, you'll see the grass kind of come back to the track right here. That's a good point to turn in, but the turn in is going to be extremely slow. It's going to be a very gradual turn in kind of down towards this apex. And because you have so much space to work with, your eyes kind of lose track of where to be looking in this area. Try to be looking for this curb as early as you possibly can once you've kind of passed this grass patch where you're going to be turning in. If you're looking in the right spot or even up to the exit curbing, exiting turn 6, your mind will help you find that line through here. But if your eyes aren't disciplined through all of this space, because of how nebulous the area is, it can be tricky to kind of find that flow through. So once you've found that inside curb or even that outside curb to kind of help you find the line through here, the last thing you have to worry about is a couple of bumps right here at the apex that are tucked up against that curb. If you hit the bumps just right, that means you're on line, but it unfortunately also throws the car out to the outside a little bit more aggressively than you might want. So once you've gone through this corner a couple times, you'll feel what that bump is going to do, and you can just kind of use that as part of your line to get the car to track out. But be aware, the first couple laps through here, if you're feeling a big violent bump, that's going to happen every lap. The last thing before we move on from turn 6 is you will need to brake just a little bit for turn 6, but because it's so shallow and because there's already enough going on here, you really want to keep the brake pressure light and as early as possible. So if you can just kind of get your braking done and get back to maintenance throttle to roll your speed through this corner, you're going to be doing yourself a favor rather than trying to charge in, brake, and change direction. The last of our triple right-handers is turn 7, and it actually looks pretty exaggerated on this map, but it should be very easily flat or close to flat for most cars. You'll have tracked out from turn 6 all the way on the left, and you can just kind of draw a straight line from curb to curb, inside curb, and then outside curb here on your left. It should feel similar to turn 2, and again, if you're north of 400 or 500 horsepower, you may have to breathe the throttle just a little bit through the middle of the corner, but in general, turn 7 should be a relatively non-event as far as the lap goes. One note for turns 5, 6, and 7, all 3 inside curbs are not particularly friendly. The friendliest might be at turn 5 if you hop that curb a little with the right sides, but in general, I would keep off of these curbs on the inside for the most part. So now we get a little bit of a moment to breathe and a big acceleration zone between turns 7 and 8 coming this way down the left side of the track. And turn 8 starts the S's off, but really it's part of this long straightaway and should be, for the most part, an acceleration zone towards turn 9. Now the key with turn 8 is to just kind of slowly turn the car in as the curb on your left here ends, and we want to use all the inside curb at the inside of turn 8 to get set up as late as possible on the far right to get ourselves towards the S's at turn 9. For the most part, you shouldn't have to slow down for turn 8 at all. If anything, again, a more powerful car may need to breathe off the throttle to keep the front tires hooked up as you turn in this way. And again, placement is really, really critical for turn 8 because it sets you up for the next 5 corners or so. But it is a very high-speed corner. Don't lose your acceleration opportunity that it presents you. You really want to keep your speed up through turn 8. So now that we've powered through turn 8, we have our car pointed off in this direction on the far right of the track. And as soon as we get pointed straight right here, our hands go back to center. That's your opportunity to brake, and it's going to be a very brief and aggressive brake before slowing the car, or to slow the car down for turn 9. So having our braking done, again, a very firm and brief brake, and then come right back off the brake pedal and go back to a little bit of maintenance throttle to stabilize the car as we get to turn 9. Now we want to use a lot of the inside curb at turn 9 here as well. And the key with turns 9 and 10 both is to really exaggerate the late apex. We want to get ahead of these S's so that we can straight line the exit and carry our speed out. So don't attack the exit of these turns 9 and 10 too much. It's a very late apex, meaning we want to cling onto the outside or the inside curb here until we've really passed that inside curb and then gradually turn back for turn 10. Here at turn 10 is something very similar. The inside curb will end right where an access road that straight lines through this section meets. And that's our apex point here, right at the end of turn 10. So we'll use a lot of inside curb at turn 9. We'll apex very late with not much inside curb at turn 10. And now we should be set up to straight line 11 and 12 really nicely. We should be able to start not really worrying about the car placement so much and really start aggressively feeding throttle to power through 11 and 12. If you've done your work well, it turns 8, 9, and 10. 11 will feel a little dramatic, and 12 will just be a straight line. And at 12, you can use a lot of this inside curb here on driver's right to kind of straight line across and then track the car out to the left for the entry of turn 13. Coming into turn 13, we'll have brake markers on our left side, usually a 4, 3, 2, and a 1. And it looks like a really heavy braking zone, but actually turn 13 is surprisingly fast because we actually don't have to set up at all for turn 14. So 13, similar to turn 1, is really about throwing the car through the corner and carrying as much speed as we can, which means we can brake pretty late for turn 13, and we actually turn in fairly early as well, right around where the 1 board typically is. We're going to bring the car across the track. You can jump this inside curb as aggressively as you like. If you're feeling like you want to use all of it, by all means, go for it. And let the car's momentum carry you all the way out to the left, entering turn 14. Now that we've ended up on the inside of the track for turn 14, we're going to drive this like a skid pad. Just keep the car super, super tight all the way through turn 14. So we're tight on entry, tight in the middle, and we're sticking to the left on exit as well, up to this access road that cuts into the track right here, just as we track out for turn 14. That'll have us all the way to the left and opened up turn 15 as much as possible. As we finish turn 14, again, working the car to keep on the left side of the track, we're going to use that weight transfer to transition back into turn 15 and straighten this corner out as much as possible. That will make turn 15 feel much faster, and you can actually start to accelerate and carry all the way out to the right side here before slowing back down for turn 16. A good turn-in timing point is that access road, so really use that. If you're drawing a straight line from the exit of 14 to the inside of 15, you're underutilizing what that weight transfer can do for you right here. Now that we've powered out of turn 15, we're all the way up to the left side of the track, It shouldn't be much of a brake to slow down for turn 16. Just a quick tap to put the weight on the front axle and slowly feed the car down to a central apex here at turn 16 before feeding the power up onto the front straightaway. You can get baited into turning in a little too late here for turn 16 to go for a late apex, but actually this entire area is paved on the outside of turn 16. So if you start to track out too early, the worst you're going to do is track across a little bit of curbing that's out here. But again, you really want to pick up the throttle early and let the car just kind of breathe coming back up onto the front straightaway, which will eventually open up to being all the way on the left side of the track here. So that should complete a full lap of NOLA Motorsports Park. Back onto the front start-finish straight, and we'll jump inside a car and take a look at it. So now we're hopping on board at NOLA Motorsports Park, and this is a Porsche Cayman GT4 race car, the factory-built one. So it's on some Pirelli slicks, extremely dead Pirelli slicks, but it's a proper race car, paddle shift car, pretty quick for this kind of track. So coming up onto the front straightaway, there's a little preview of the extra runoff that you'll have at that last corner. But the front straightaway itself, pretty bumpy. I think the middle of this straightaway is the most comfortable place to be, but you can see even now how bumpy it gets before finally getting over to the left side. Now we'll see our brake markers start there. We're going to brake at the 5, bumpy through here, and then smooths out for turn in, down to the inside curb, and then tracking all the way out to the outside. We'll get back just a little bit to set up for turn 2, and this car was just on the verge of being able to go flat through turn 2. But then easily tracking out to the right side there, braking just after the access road and slowly leading the car down to the inside for a central apex at turn 3. But notice the patience. I don't let the car track out, and now I'm just cutting distance through the acceleration zone towards turn 4. Braking just before that curb on our left, and again, leading the car slowly down to a central apex and then tracking out, not using too much distance, kind of finding that sweet spot between distance and speed. Now towards turns 5, we're going to brake just past this curb, turning down to the inside curb, and not using inside, and then left side's out to the outside. Now look at this grass, right where it joins in is a slow turn in. Pay attention to how slow that turn in was. There was almost no input, and it just slowly led the car down to that inside curve at turn 6. Now we're flat out through turn 7, all the way to the left side of the track for this little bit of a straightaway towards turn 8. Now we're coming into the S's. We're going to turn in nice and slow, climb the inside curb on the right, brake in a straight line, and then get right back on the power using a little bit of that curb on the left, trying to backside the curb here at turn 10. Now I was a little too early there. Notice what that did. I'm now behind for turn 11. I had to get back on rhythm, but now I can still straighten out turn 12. Nice out to the outside, hard on the brakes, but then coming off the brake pedal early and jumping this inside curb to let the car track all the way out to the left. Now we're skid padding just nice and tight all the way through turn 14. There's that access road. We're going to cling to the inside 4 and then turning back across, carrying our speed through the inside of 15. Underdrove it just a little bit there. Now you can see I was a little early for turn 16, but I can still get on the power and track out to that outside curb. If you were too early on the power, you can still use all that curb up onto the front straight here at NOLA. So those are my tips for NOLA Motorsports Park, and that brings us to our scores for the track. First up, fun factor is going to be a 6. And I think most of that 6 happens from about turn 8 to turn 16. So about half the lap is super fun. The rest of it is a little take or leave. So I think you get a little bit of that waiting for the fun, do the fun, wait for the fun again. But I'll give it a 6. Next up, we have our risk factor, and this one's a good one. It's only a 3 on risk factor. It's kind of out in the field, and you're equally likely to hit a cow as you are a wall as far as the track will tell you. The really only place you have to worry about is coming up onto the front straightaway. It is pretty high speed though, so if you go off, you might go for a while. You're really not likely to hit much if you do. And finally, our technicality is also going to be a 6. I think the bumps at this track are really the most technical part about it. Also kind of linking the S's together, some of these faster corners, they have a little bit of nuance to them, but it is not the most absolute technical place once you kind of learn where the bumps are and how to exploit them. So my overall score for NOLA Motorsports Park is going to be a 6 in total. Again, I think there's not as much attention as this track should get necessarily put on it, but it is a ton of fun to go to. I really think, especially in faster cars with some downforce and some grip, these S's are some of the highlights of anywhere in the United States. So it's a lot of fun to go to. So that's it for NOLA Motorsports Park. We do offer driver coaching packages from remote coaching all the way to private trackside coaching and a lot more here at ASM and Tomo Coaching. So if you're interested in that, give us a shout on the website. But otherwise, hope you found that helpful, and thanks for watching.